Hey folks, welcome to round 3. In this game, I'm going up against the Fish and Friends army. My opponent has brought Iwashia, Master of Tides, 3 copies of the Gelri Vanguard, the Krakenling, and Chana the Zenith Wing. Because of the rule of 11, they've had to drop one of their Gelri figures, so they're only rolling in with 11 of them, but 11 Gelri is still pretty scary. One of the chief reasons why is because of Tidal Advance. Tidal Advance allows this entire army, save for Chana, to advance up the board every round. The number of spaces they move is equal to the number of order markers on the Gelri Vanguard army card. So, as you can see, that's exactly what has happened here. We're on the map Wool, and my opponent's army is already halfway up the board. Great. Now, in order to have done this, my opponent has given me a lot of information. All of their order markers are on the Gelri, which means there's going to be no activations from the Krakenling or Iwashia for the entire round. So that's the good news, I suppose. The bad news is that the Gelri are more than capable of walking all over Savaris if left to their own devices. The Gelri love matchups against ranged units because ranged units don't like taking height against them due to the defend from the deep power on their army card. It's almost never worth it to step up onto high ground, and that's kind of where I want Savaris to be. I want him to be up on high ground, so I need to take even level shots against these Gelri to try to thin out the herd. It's extraordinarily tempting to lead with the Knaves and Crimson Widow in this matchup and save Savaris for the endgame duel with Iwashia, where I think he'll do better. But the problem there is that I just don't think the Knaves have the durability to withstand 11 Gelri Vanguard soldiers. The Knaves like to attack when the herd has been thinned out a little bit so that they don't get counterattacked as easily. They want to kind of pick off lone targets, and sending them into the fray like this means that I'm going to have a lot of dead Knaves on my hand. Additionally, there are a couple of glyphs here that the Gelri just love to see on the board. Probably the most important one here is in the south, that is the glyph of Valda, plus 2 move. 7 move Gelri is terrifying. I don't want them to have access to that, so I need to contest that glyph. The northern glyph is the glyph of Wanik, which at the end of every round, my opponent rolls a d20. On anything other than a 1, I have to assign a wound to one of the figures in my army. It's not great for me to let my opponent sit on that glyph round after round after round, because those wounds start to add up, but I don't really have much of a choice. I can't contest both. My army's not big enough to do that, and I think the move glyph is just going to be more important in the overall scheme of things. So I set my army up in a similar way to the last game. I have the Crimson Widow and the Knaves roughly in the center, with 2 of them across the Rubicon here on the other side, and then Savaris in the south to contest Valda. I see that my opponent has sent their Krakenling down south, and that's going to be a problem for me pretty quick. I'm going to need something to deal with that, hopefully this round, so Savaris had better watch out, because the Krakenling is no joke. I'll be honest, this is a scary matchup for me, and it's a game I don't think I can afford to lose. Remember, we're aiming for a top 8 placement in order to get our hands on the Crimson Widow figure for this event, and if I lose this game, that basically means I must win my follow-up game in order to have any chance of contending for it. Making the top 8 out of 12 players normally shouldn't be that tall of an order, but I kind of rolled into this event with a bit of a meme army, and yeah, now I'm going up against something that actually has some teeth. So we place our order markers and roll initiative. I win it, revealing order marker 1 on Savaris. I summon a Kraken Tentacle, I step Savaris forward to a point where he can't be reached by the Gelri, and I take a shot at one of the approaching Gelri, but it is blocked. My opponent then reveals order marker 1 on the Gelri Vanguards. They move one of the Gelri onto the glyph of Valda and then explode out towards the north and take a commanding presence up there, guarding the glyph of Wanik. Like I mentioned earlier, 7 move Gelri is terrifying, and this has a chance to spiral out of control unless I can stem the bleeding here very quickly. That being said, however, I think my opponent has opened up a weak point that I plan to exploit. On order marker 2, I summon another Kraken Tentacle and step Savaris forward into a spot where he can't be reached by other Gelri. My opponent failed to reinforce their position around Velda, so now I'm able to take out the gallery that was on Velda with impunity. In this attack, I reduced my range to 6 so that I could shoot the gallery first on the glyph and then take another shot into either the Krakenling or the gallery on low ground there. I'm able to kill the one on the glyph, but the other attack is blocked. My opponent reveals order marker number 2 and realizes that they can't get to Savaris this turn, so they opt to develop 4 more fish into the center of the map. On my 3rd order marker, I summon another Kraken tentacle, then pull off a maneuver I've become a big fan of. By commanding the Kraken this close to Valda, I'm able to move one of the tentacles onto Valda to give the other 2 tentacles +2 move. This allows me to make use of the tentacle that was summoned on my 1st order marker that's all the way back there near my start zone. So I'm able to jump it up onto high ground, and the other Kraken tentacle comes in to assist, and they launch their tentacles into the gallery below. All of that slapping around only nets me 1 kill, but what it does that's more important is that it blocks off access for those gallery in the center to come down and fight Savaris. For being slippery fish, they don't have disengage, so these Kraken tentacles will help to tether my opponent's army. My opponent then reveals order marker 3 on the gallery. They send in a trio of fish fighters and start chopping up the Kraken tentacles, killing one of them. This gallery up here is really annoying, and I love this play from them. They move it towards my start zone so that they can start picking off my figures that are sleeping in the back there next round. The more immediate threat for me, though, is the placement of the Krakenling. The Krakenling can warp 4 spaces just like the Kraken tentacles can, and that means it can get right here and get 3 heighted attacks down into Savaris, surely killing him. There's no way I survive that. So as it comes to the end of the round, I must account for that. My opponent is on Wannock, so I have to put a wound on one of my figures. Initially, I was thinking I would put it on Crimson Widow, but I actually decided to put it on this Kraken tentacle in the center here. I figured if my opponent wins initiative, they're going to kill it no matter what. They've got so many fish surrounding it, so having an extra life on it isn't really going to do me much, but keeping Crimson Widow alive for the rest of the game would be more valuable, I think, in the long term. Crimson Widow is a bit more of a linchpin piece to this army than the Kraken is, so I don't mind putting the Wannock wounds on the Kraken tentacles. So going into round 3, I have a bit of a conundrum here. I want to get Savaris out of there. I want to protect him. I want to avoid that encounter with the Krakenling, but I can't do that by putting order marker 1 on Savaris. If I put order marker 1 on Savaris and my opponent wins initiative, they very well could have a number 1 on the Krakenling and jump in and kill Savaris, thus killing my order marker. I think the safer play is to put the 1 on the Knaves, then bond with Crimson Widow, intercept the turn with the Kraken, and use the Kraken to fight the Krakenling. That way, even if Savaris is killed by the Krakenling, I don't lose a turn. I don't lose that activation. So that's kind of what I'm playing for here. So I put order markers 1 and 2 on the Knaves. I put the X on Crimson Widow. And then, just because it might happen, you know, I might be okay, I put order marker 3 on Savaris. This is a little risky, though. Like I mentioned, my opponent has a great chance to take out Savaris here, so this is, you know, I'm getting greedy, I think, a little bit, but I want to play for it. I want to get Savaris out of there if I can. Before I get to do any of that, though, my opponent gets to do the tidal advance, and in doing this, I think they make a pretty significant mistake. Check out the new position of the Krakenling here. It's moved out of the safety of the Jungle Tree bonus and into the danger of being next to high ground, and it's gained no more mobility or validity in doing so. Its prime target was within reach from its previous position, so I don't see the value in moving it out like this. I think just because you can move a piece with tidal advance doesn't mean you necessarily should move a piece. My opponent should have left this Krakenling back where it was, I think. Worse yet, though, I think, is their order marker placement. My opponent wins initiative, but Their order marker 1 is on Awashia, very surprisingly. Awashia has to stand her ground here so she can channel her Twister special attack from the adjacent water and attacks the Kraken tentacles, but isn't able to do any damage. She then places water beneath her, which will help her in the future, but I really do think this order marker 1 should have been on the Krakenling or the Gallery. Either one of those options would have been better. The Gallery have the potential of making 4 attacks in a turn, and the Krakenling had the potential of killing a key piece of my army. I am extremely lucky to have dodged a bullet here because I think my opponent made some poor choices in their planning for this round. So I reveal my, sorry, in this photo, one of the other players was really excited to show me their attack roll that they had just rolled, so here it is. I think there was actually 5 skulls total, which is very impressive. Anyway, I reveal order marker 1 on the Knaves. They bond with Crimson Widow, who activates Midnight Raid and sends 2 of them forward into the center of the map. Then I intercept the Crimson Widow's turn with the Kraken, and I love this play here. I move the Kraken tentacle up off of Valda onto the high ground, and I'm able to kill the Krakenling in 1 attack. It's just beautiful. The other Kraken tentacle then attacks down onto the Gallery next to it, also getting a kill. The reason why I chose to attack that one rather than the one on even ground, which would have been a better attack, is because the Knaves were coming up next, and I knew that I would be able to reach that one, so I'm able to get the kill with the Knave. The Knave in the north also kills a Gallery, which is great. The last 2 Knaves attack the Gallery that had managed to tidal advance into my start zone, and it hangs on, which is really annoying. Still, this turn required a lot of planning ahead, knowing where I had to place things in what order, and I'm really happy with how it all turned out. I had to account for the fact that I wouldn't have Valda when it came time to use the Knaves, so I needed to use Midnight Raid right now to get the Knaves close enough up the board so that they could attack Gallery, and I also had to remember what order of events things went in, so that Kraken Tentacle had to attack down on a Gallery, making a worse attack, just so that the other Knave coming up would have something to attack. It pays to plan out your steps in advance there, folks. Make sure you're thinking of those things when you're playing. Hold on, I just noticed there's a wound marker on the Crimson Widow's card, which must mean that I chose to put the Wannick wound on Crimson Widow, which in turn must have meant that Iwashia's Twister attack must have done 1 damage to the Kraken Tentacle, and I just got the 2 confused there, so let's correct the record there, I think, at least. I guess I figured that having a full-life Kraken Tentacle in the center was a bit more valuable than having a full-life Crimson Widow in the back. I think both choices are pretty valid, though with the way that this played out, I obviously made the correct call here, because had I wounded the Kraken Tentacle, Iwashia would have taken it out, and that would have been worse. Anyways, my opponent reveals order marker 2 on the Gallery Vanguard, and they circle around that Kraken Tentacle and finally finish the job. Surprisingly, my Knaves in the start zone are holding on against that Gallery, and I haven't lost a single Knave yet, which is really impressive and makes me wish that I had put order marker 3 on the Knaves. Anyways, I reveal order marker 2, bond with the Crimson Widow to move her up to height to attack down on this pesky Gallery, and it's still blocked, which is, again, super annoying. It requires the attacks of 2 more Knaves to finally put this Gallery down, but that is the mightiest fish warrior I've ever fought before, my goodness. The other 2 Knaves are busy slicing and dicing in the center of the map here. One of them takes out another Gallery Vanguard, and the other one goes in for a cheap shot against Awashia. The Gallery goes down, but unfortunately Awashia blocks the attack. I was pretty scared of Awashia just tearing things up in the end game. I had just watched the end of my opponent's previous match, where she had played Awashia in a way where over the course of the game, she had healed like 3 or 4 wounds off of her using Chana, and it was a real nail biter at the end. She ended up losing, but like, wow, what a close finish there. I didn't want any of that to go down in our game here, so I tried to make a point of attacking Awashia when I could. My opponent then reveals order marker 3 on the Krakenling, and It's such a tragedy, because had that order marker and Awashia's order marker been flipped, they would be in such a better spot here. The Krakenling could have moved up and nuked Savaris, eliminating my order marker number 3. And then Awashia and Channa here could actually clean up 2 of the knaves, with Channa flying in and killing the knave next to Awashia, and Awashia using her twister attack on the knave on high ground. This relatively simple order marker misplay might have cost my opponent the game. So, I get to take my order marker 3 with Savaris. I summon another Kraken Tentacle, and I step onto the move glyph, because I'm going to want that for the knaves coming up into the next round. With Savaris, I take a snipe shot at one of the gallery and knock it out. It's now the end of the round, and this time I decide to put the Wannock wound on one of the Kraken Tentacles. My game plan going into this next round is going to be much the same. I'm going to try to get as much value out of the knaves while they're still on the board as I can, and I'm going to command the Kraken whenever the opportunity presents itself. Lastly, I'm going to follow up with an order marker 3 on Savaris to just kind of clean up whatever's remaining. This decision is far safer this round than it was in the last round, because Savaris is in no immediate danger, and my opponent, quite frankly, has more pressing matters to deal with. Anyways, I win initiative, and this is a big swing for the game here. I reveal order marker 1 on the knaves. They bond with Crimson Widow, who uses Midnight Raid to move 2 of them closer to the Glyph of Wannock. I then use the Command the Kraken ability to intercept the turn and move the Kraken tentacles in. One of the tentacles is able to kill Channa in 1 hit, which is huge. We got to take out the healer first. And the other tentacle is able to kill the gallery in the mid-ground there. So now my opponent's left with 1 single gallery left on the board. The knaves in the north are able to take out 1 gallery up there, but they're unable to finish the job with the one on Wannock. That's going to have to wait till next turn. The knaves in the center make 2 attacks against Awashia, but I don't see any wound markers on her card from this angle. It's entirely possible she blocked both of them, but it might just be a mystery number of wounds at this point. Now, notice how I split up my forces around Awashia here. There's nowhere she can line up a twister special attack to erase multiple figures, so her efficiency is going to go down significantly. Indeed, when my opponent reveals order marker 1 on Awashia, she's forced to just attack one of the knaves, getting the kill, but it still doesn't feel good. With Twister Special Attack, you want to line up your opponent's figures to get maximum value, but I'm trying to deny that here. On my turn, I reveal order marker 2 on the knaves, and decide to move Crimson Widow up into the center of the map here. She now has eyes on all of her pirate squaddies, which will be helpful if I need to move any of them with Midnight Raid next round. Notice the little switcheroo of the knaves here? I sent the one that was in the middle up to the north to attack, and the one that was in the north down to the middle to attack, because the knaves get +1 attack if they attack something that they weren't adjacent to at the start of the turn. Because they're boosted by the Glyph of Valda, I have enough move speed to do this little maneuver here, and it's just a way to get a little bit more efficiency out of the army card. With this, they're finally able to kill the last of the gallery standing on Wannock, and potentially do another mystery amount of wounds to Awashia. My opponent reveals order marker 2 on Awashia, and again is forced to stand her ground and just delete one of the knaves. This now means that order marker 3 and the X are on the gallery, and those are dead order markers. Because of this knowledge, when I reveal order marker 3 on Savaris, I feel confident that I can step forward and take a couple of shots up into Awashia. Again, Awashia standing in water is really tough to take down, so I'm not able to close out the game quite yet. Going into what I think will be the final round here, I want to prioritize a couple of things. Firstly, I want to make sure that I just keep throwing everything at Awashia to finally cut through this defense and take her down. The other thing I want to do though is I need to get a figure onto Wannock, because Wannock doesn't care if Awashia is standing in water in order to inflict auto wounds. So getting figures on the Glyph of Wannock towards the end of the game like this is really powerful. Remember, the Glyph of Wannock gets stronger the later into the game you go, because your opponent has less choices as to what to put the wound on. I decide that the order marker distribution from the last 2 rounds has been working so far, and I'm just going to do it again here. We roll initiative, I win initiative, and reveal order marker 1 on the knaves. They bond with Crimson Widow, but she allows the Kraken to intercept the turn. One of the Kraken pieces moves back onto the Glyph of Valda to boost up the other two, that then charge in and are able to finally take down Awashia. With Awashia down, that gives me the win. Of all the games I played in this tournament, this was the one I was the most scared of. This Gallery army really had the potential to stop me dead in my tracks, and if it did, it had a good chance of knocking me out of the running for the top 8. I'm normally pretty jovial when I play Hero Escape, but this one made me shut up and lock in, because especially going into round 2 there, I was really terrified that the Krakenling would move in, kill Savaris, and I would be in a really bad shape. Luckily for me, though, my opponent didn't realize the necessity or the urgency of that situation and made a bit of an order marker blunder. Had they not done that, though, I could have seen this game going much differently. As it stands, though, this victory puts me at 2 wins, 1 loss for the tournament. I have one more round to go, and then we'll recap the whole thing.